Hello, friends. Welcome back. We are here to discuss. We're here to just chat, really, not discuss anything. Just shoot the shit, basically, about our reading month for January. So I'm Steve, and you can find me on pagechewing.com, on the Page Chewing podcast, Page Chewing Comics and Manga, or Film Chewing. So I think that's all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway,
and my goal in life is to accumulate a list of podcasts as long as Steve's.
It's amazing how much less time 3 podcasts takes me versus YouTube.
Mm.
I think I spend less time editing, but we can talk about that in a minute. But
yes.
I am drinking this beer that I'm excited about. It's called Buzz the Tower. It's a blonde ale with coffee.
Oh.
So we'll find out. It's by Ex Novo. It's a local brewery. Okay. But anyway, so Varsha, what are you drinking tonight?
Water, Steve. just water in a pink cup.
At least you're drinking it in style, right? So tell us about yourself.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm Varsha. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain, and I think on maybe every other episode on the Page Chewing podcast, because I show up on a bunch of book discussions. And you can find me haunting the Page Chewing forum.
Nice. Know me.
Yes, sure,
yeah, well, I am drinking cherries and berries cordial. You know, again, very rock and roll of me for what is a Saturday night for me. My name is Chris Moen. I sometimes YouTuber, sometimes appear in discussions just like this with Steve, whether in the film chewing or book discussions or comic discussions or otherwise. I find kindred spirits. Let's put it that way. We have kindred spirits in that we have a multi kind of. I'm not allowed to use the word content, but it's kind of multifaceted view of storytelling and all that kind of stuff. So I like diving into all of that. And you can also find me the Page Chewing forums as well.
It's very enriching. Yeah. And Chibipoe's here. Hey, Chibipoe.
Hello. Well, I'm Chibipoe. Hang out on the Page Chewing forums and pop in here every now and then.
Glad you can make it.
I'm not drinking anything special. Sorry.
It's okay.
Not like me and Varsha.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's funny, but like with audio, it's so much easier to edit. And even when you have an audio track that has like pops and hisses, and we experienced that recently with the podcast we did, even fixing that is a lot easier and a lot less time consuming than editing one video. I think it used to take me, for like my weekly wrap up, it would take me like 2.5, 3 hours for a 30-minute video to script it, record it, edit it, thumbnail, upload, post it. It would take, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours for a 30-minute video. So now it takes me like 10 minutes, if even that. Once you have your workflow down, it's a lot easier to do an audio edit. Unless there's like a track that has like a background noise or something weird with it, it's usually pretty straightforward. But
nice. You have to show me how to fix the pops and cracks. Oh, wait, sorry. Was Chibipoe saying something? Oh.
No, I said I was just curious, have we lost you? Because you looked like you were frozen. So, but then you start saying things. So.
Yeah. Your video doesn't show them, but your voice is coming through loud and clear, which is nice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. But yeah, I was going to say, Steve, you have to show me how to do that so that I can make my workflow 15 minutes instead of... I feel like audio takes me longer, but that's because I use After Effects to do the spectrum thing. And then, like, that takes 5 minutes to do, but it takes an hour to export every time. Like, not that you can help me speed that up, but maybe show me the audition to fix the pops and crackles.
yeah, I was going to say with that, the track we're talking about, I think we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, I was going to kind of play around with it and see if we can fix that up.
Nice.
Can I watch you do it? Like, can we do a working session and I'll see what to do?
I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going to putz around with it until something works. That's it. Even if you're pissed about it, I just just gonna watch.
It's not yeah. It's just like, it's just like a dog trying to open a door. Like that's what it'll be me, just like pulling at a door until it gets right, until I get it right. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So it's something I've been thinking about lately, with content, when you start making content, and we'll get to a reading in a minute, but I was just curious to hear everyone's opinions on this. But I find myself, when I'm enjoying something, no matter what it is, whether it's a book or a movie or a TV show or whatever it is, I find myself I catch myself thinking, how can I turn this into content, or how can I turn this into something to? And I think part of it is just because it's fun to do. But I'm trying to not think of things that way. Do both of you have the same experience?
I definitely have that problem. Like everything, especially if you're enjoying it, like you want to share in that. And sometimes when you're just by yourself and watching, like I've watched a lot of TV this month, and I have outside of the True Detective stuff, I have no other vehicle for it, if that makes sense, to do something with. And I did mention very jokingly to somebody else, I could just start a podcast. And I went, that's a great idea. And I was like, oh shit, what did I do? And now we're in a private chat in a group, and there's a Google document with ideas, and it's like, I only casually floated that out there. But it's also, it is exactly what we're talking about, which is this idea of, I'd like to discuss some of these things and see if, somebody else has seen it, or if they hated it, they can tell me why they hated it and whether I just love things. And same for movies, etc. Except, again, I watch too many movies to kind of make large amounts of content for it, because I'd rather spend the time watching the movie or watching TV series than making the content, if that makes sense. So, books I find a bit different, because obviously books take a lot longer to read. And so, actually, that time is sort of like investing in. And especially for the books that we tend to read and the comics that we tend to read, they are always enriched by the conversation, like massively. Like it's just everything takes on another level of appreciation or hate or whatever it is, that you're doing.
It's almost like I can't enjoy it unless we talk about it. Like it's like it has to come full circle, otherwise it feels incomplete. Yeah. Like I want to hear other opinions, and like. Yeah, so I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah, I think I find that with books, maybe movies not so much, because I don't really make any movie-related content. But there's also some science stuff that my husband and I are thinking of doing, or that maybe we're like, oh, we hear something interesting, like, oh, how do we turn this into some video that we can do? We haven't started anything yet, but it's been an ongoing process. Like, we've been listening to The First 3 Minutes by Steven Weinberg, in which I think he turned a lecture that he gave on the first 3 minutes of the universe into a book, and we've been listening to that during our car rides, and so like taking notes, like let's dig deeper into that and see if we can do something with it. So I understand that impulse, and with respect to books too, but yeah, maybe on different things than you were talked about.
Don't take notes while you're driving, Varsha.
Just a second.
Yeah. Don't take notes while you're driving. That's a terrible idea.
So, to be clear, my husband does the driving. I take the notes on my Kindle.
Right.
For those of you who can take notes on a Kindle, you have my respect, because even just turning a page on a Kindle is a pain in the ass. I don't know how anybody loves the Kindle. I don't get it.
Oh, I love my Kindle. It's
such a pain.
My favorite reading device. But, I mean, okay, I meant the app. I find typing on the Kindle a pain. I agree with you there. But I love my Kindle for reading, though.
Yeah, it's great for reading. For anything else, it's like to search and to take notes and to, I mean, even just like jumping to a chapter sometimes is like an adventure. But I have a Paperwhite, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I have the iPad app on or the Kindle app on the iPad. It's like butter. It's a very nice experience.
Does it not bother your eyes? I find and it's been a thing recently. I can't read a lot on my phone. I like the Kindle for that reason too, that it doesn't bother my eyes the way my phone or an iPad would.
I've got older man issues, so it's nice thing about the Kindle is you can kind of turn up the font size quite easily. So actually, I've had to do that a bit over the past couple of years, and like that kind of flexibility, I think, is one of the things that makes the Kindle just such a great reading tool. Because sometimes there are occasionally books that I open and start to read and go, I just can't. This is too small, or I can't read this with a bedside light. I need actually full daylight to be able to do this. This is definitely old man problems, but between that and the bladder, like, there's definite signs.
Yeah. I find myself like refusing to change the font, but like I will not do it. And until I'm like this, I'm like, I will not change the font size. I refuse. I will not do it.
Do you guys care about what font you read in? I find that I have to keep, like, books that have a particular font, I am more likely to read than if the font is not to my liking. And with the Kindle, I keep changing the font every now and then to make it nicer. I don't like any of the fonts on the Kindle, but I keep changing it to see if I can improve how it feels. Is that something you guys care about, or is it just me? Just me?
I like a nice clean font with no kind of serif on it, no kind of tails or anything. Just something nice and clean, something Helvetica or something like that. I'd say, even the word default of Calibri is perfectly fine. Times New Roman, too fancy. Garamond, too fancy. All those ones, just a bit too fancy.
Interesting. I think I really like the ones on Grand Conspiracy, like the Johnny Watts books, not the first two.
Yes, because the changed the font,
I think.
indeed, yeah.
4 and 5, I like the font.
Yeah. I quite like reading this font. There is...
yeah.
There's definitely something really nice about it. And I think more so than the font, the space and etc. is important. And then especially on paperback ones, oh my God, see if they put it too far into the middle. See if they don't have that space for the middle. Oh.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not a spine cracker. And that causes problems. Oh, dear God, Chibi.
Nice.
Oh, no, Chibipoe. Not you too.
The broken spine.
Oh, no. Broken spines. Oh,
to
no.
be fair,
no, there's no justification.
This
but
is
keep going.
a copy from 2000. So
somebody else broke it.
It's a 20. It's a 20-plus-year-old copy, so
It's a good-looking copy. It is.
yeah.
That has been read, 15
That's not
times?
like Curse
It
of the
looks really
Mistwraith.
good for that.
Yeah, it's not like my Curse of the Mistwraith, which I read the cover off completely. And the cover is tucked into one of the inside pages.
Oh, my God. What is this?
I think I had
Heresy?
some Harry Potter books like that.
So I guess, I think for me, the font depends on the book too. Because if the book is like something that is kind of more straightforward, I don't mind a more basic font. But if it's, sometimes it can be like, it can add to the experience what the font is. So it depends on the feeling and the theme of the book too. If it has a certain feel to it, I don't mind a fancier font, something. But then again, if after a while it might get a little bit annoying if it's, hours and hours of reading.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a fancy font, right? Yeah. But yeah, mostly I think I like small, roundish fonts that are small on the page. Even though it's harder to read, I like that it's prettier that way.
So, I guess we should talk about what we've been reading. So, Chibipoe, what have you been reading this month?
Well, I'm rereading this, just, so I'm not hanging around being like, why are you guys not, on my level?
You think that anyway, Chibi.
I'm still working on Kingdom of Copper.
Nice.
And I think those are the only two I'm actively reading right now. I did pick up, Varsha saw one of the books I picked up while I was in Seattle last weekend. But I've picked up some others, at a little used bookstore over near the Macahal, that, had a couple of books that I liked. So I got
Kate Elliott?
one of the volumes of Crown of Stars. So I've still got some gaps to fill in that. I picked this up because I realized I didn't have a mass market paperback of it.
Oh, it's Red House Castle.
For easy read, And then I found, at that same bookstore,
CJ Cherry books, Fortress of Eagles and Fortress of Dragons. Very nice. Recommended by Johnny, I think, the last time we were speaking, yeah.
Yeah, I've got, I've had this one for a long time.
Fortress and
I've read it and enjoyed it, and I've got the others in hardback. But I was like, all right, let's do, paperback. There's still like one other I've got to find that she did, but I think she, like the series didn't sell well, so she didn't finish the whole trilogy.
Oh no.
And then at the bookstore that Varsha took me to, I got this.
So Sean Speakman, I don't know that one at all. The King Killing Queen.
Killing Queen.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Sean Speakman owns/runs Grim Oak Press, right?
Oh, right. Very good.
Yes. Grim Oak and the Signed Page or something, I think, is other. That they have. I think it does something else too, but I don't remember.
How was your trip to the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I was telling Chris a little bit about it. So, getting up there was fine. I met Varsha and we checked out a nice little coffee shop / bookstore. I love like that. I wish I'd bought more books, but that's all right. I ended up spending a bit more money than I had intended. While I was there that weekend, but that's all right. Then Saturday, the concert was Saturday night, and Saturday day, I get a phone call from Amtrak. They're like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Their voicemail. I'm like, something with my train tomorrow on Sunday. I'm like, okay. So I call them, and finally it makes sense of that, which is, mudslide had taken out the tracks, and they wouldn't be cleared until sometime Sunday evening. And they're like, well, we're going to send you on a bus. I'm like, okay. So that ended up being made Sunday quite a chore, because it's like basically I got over to the station so that I could be there and plenty of time, and sat around there, and then rode a bus down to Portland, and then rode a bus from Portland to home. So Sunday was just like, concert was a lot of fun. And I bought, where the heck did I put them? Well, shoot.
What concert was it?
I went to the Final Fantasy Distant Worlds concert.
Nice.
And
nice.
So I got to see them perform a bunch of tracks from different Final Fantasy games. And then merchandise. I bought like all their all 6 of their CDs that they've produced from the their concerts. There were some other stuff too, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna restrain myself, especially because I bought the last copy of one of them. I was the first person in line, so I was like, these people behind me are gonna be so mad because there's no copies of the newest album that they've released, because I just bought the last one.
Doesn't sound like you're too sad about it.
No, I'm not too sad. No, what I am sad about is, and I don't know if it's something's borked on my computer, but my desktop, I could swear I'd gotten it to play music CDs before, but it's got a Blu-ray drive, and apparently it doesn't play audio CDs anymore. It doesn't even recognize that there's anything there. and my PlayStation 5 doesn't play audio
That's
CDs
right,
anyway.
not, yeah.
So I bought these 6 CDs and I have nothing to play them on.
Oh no! It doesn't read the disc at all?
Nope. Yeah, the computer just, it can tell it's trying to do something, but then it just sits there after a bit and it's like, just stops. And it's like, nope, we don't detect anything here. It's like, insert a disc. I'm like, okay. And then the PS5 detects there's something there, but it's like, we don't read that. So that's annoying, but I'll get that fixed. So no big deal. And that's about all.
It's always fun to buy books when you travel, but then you realize, how am I going to get this back home with me?
Yeah,
it's always
I was
it's never
like
easy.
Repacking and packing. I'm like, all right, how do I get all these things? And and even then with the CDs and everything, I'm like, oh look, I have, I still have an extra bag of stuff because, I misjudged how much space I should. And I'd even had the thought before I left that it's like, I should take just fold up the extra bag and stick it in here to put books or something in, and then didn't do it. So I'm going to have to just next time you travel, do that.
Yeah. Pro tips.
It's an art form for sure.
Yeah. I was also thinking things of maybe I can do things to minimize my bag space and just get one of those little, you put your clothes in them and you vacuum, seal it so it reduces your clothes down to just a little tiny, flat thing. And I'm like, and then my clothes don't take up much space, but then there was realized, but then you still have to lug the thing around with you because otherwise your clothes will take up all the space when you come back. And so I don't know.
That is a great idea, to vacuum seal your clothes and make more room for books.
Yeah.
I'm always hesitant when I travel to buy books because it's like to haul these all the way back home. But that's a great idea. Pro tip for sure. Chibipoe, reading through the Wars of Light and Shadow again, are you noticing things on your... How many reads have you done?
I've lost count.
Have you been noticing new things or anything that do
yes
have a different perspective on anything?
All kinds of little things especially with what I got to privileged to do when I met up with her back in November, and I just noticed little things and I was like, oh, so that ties to this and that will tie to that, and just finding little things I'd missed here and there. And oh, hello, Mr. Filet Mignon is here.
Look at that!
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Jarrod's just here to tease everybody.
So good.
And you can go now. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. See you later.
Oh God!
He comes in, eats a steak in front of us. He eats a piece of steak in front of us, and just like, "Hey, bye," leaves.
Oh, delectful. Oh.
All right, that's it. Steve, kick him out. Just banish him.
Banned.
That even sounds moist and tender and stuff like it. Oh, dear me! This is
so good. So good. Oh, I'm getting shot by a transformer. Okay. What's going on, guys? I got my wine.
You're just pulling all the stops today.
Holy shit!
So, Jarrod, tell us about yourself.
My name is Jarrod. I have a YouTube channel called The Fantasy Thinker, where I talk about fantasy of all kinds, and I also have a blog on the Page Chewing forums, or pagechewing.com, called Creative Crossroads, and I hang out there all the time.
Can confirm. Yeah, so there's a new post up for your blog, so exciting.
Yep. What's going on, guys?
Oh, we were just saying a lot of awful shit about you, and then you showed up. No, we can't continue.
At least we got out of the way.
All right.
Optimus Prime starts hand over the filet mignon, and you won't be hurt.
Yeah, there you go.
No, Chibipoe was telling us about his trip to the Pacific Northwest and his adventures traveling with books and buying books and being the first person in line to buy the only book available that he wanted.
Yeah.
How satisfying that was to watch everyone else cry and filled with regret that they weren't the first one in line. So yeah.
Yeah, well, if they wanted to be first person in line, they should have shown up sooner.
Everybody has the opportunity
Ruthless.
to be the first in line. Yes, it takes a certain amount of dedication and forward planning.
So are the bookstores in Seattle better than Portland?
Oh,
Seattle doesn't have Powell's, so I would say no. But I only got to see 2 of them, so I can't. Varsha would maybe have a better, opinion there.
I haven't been to
putting
that
Varsha on the
many.
spot.
I haven't been to that many bookshops, but the ones that I have been to, I think Powell's. You can't beat Powell's. It's an entire block full of books. So, yeah, I think Portland can have this one.
Wow, they might run you out of Seattle.
Oh. All right.
And also, Jarrod, we were just discussing content earlier, and do you find yourself, when you read a book, or probably more books for you, but when you read a book, or you're absorbing some kind of material, do you ever wonder or find yourself wondering, how can I turn this into content?
For what? Like for my channel or for a podcast?
Yeah, for anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I for a book, mainly books that I'm reading, I consider what I'm going to say in my review of that book, if I plan on doing that, and I also like to consider if any books that I'm reading for prose purposes, because I have a segment called Reading the Prose, so I'm always on the lookout for prose that stands out to me and catches my eye and makes, that will make the grade, basically, for the segment I'm thinking about. And I also, so I'm constantly looking for, themes or interesting stuff to talk about with most of you guys, and anything that might stand out on my own channel too. So yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Follow-up question for everybody. Does that bother you? Does it ever bother you? Do you wish you could just watch a movie, read a book, whatever it is, and just not think about that?
So
I do.
I have an answer, but I was like Chris.
No, I'll go last because I'm still trying to think whether it does or doesn't.
It doesn't really bother me, but I don't make a lot of things, so if I watch videos or whatnot, movies, it's like I'm watching them to enjoy them mostly. So
I was gonna say, it doesn't bother me for books that I am enjoying and I want to talk about, but for books that I'm just reading for fun and don't intend to make any videos about or do any discussions on, I kind of wish I could turn off the analysis of what I don't like and what I like and so on, so that I think I'm just reading it for fun.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I realized that when I was going to college, and I went to college later on in life. I didn't go right out of high school, and so I went more as an adult. And I realized that because that's what you're doing in college, because literature is my college thing, and so that's what you're doing there. And I realized that after I left college, I actually missed that. I missed reading to have something to say after I was done. And so when I actually realized that there were people who did this all the time, I was like, oh, now I have somewhere to put my energy, I guess. But so yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I enjoy paying attention. I enjoy taking things apart, more so with books than like movies. Movies, I still do it here and there, but definitely, I definitely enjoy it. So I don't. It doesn't bother me one bit.
We talked about this a little last night after recording of our podcast in terms of the books that we are doing discussions for. I approach in a very different critical mind too, because I'm always thinking, what am I going to say when I'm doing this? So the content part of that that mechanism of divulging that book is different than, say, if I'm reading something just for fun, where I'll just kind of go through and sort of get a feeling whether I'm enjoying it or not. That's pretty much the only thing that'll come through. Watching movies is very different, though. I can't not watch movies critically. I don't know why that's true, to be fair, but maybe it's just because they're a shorter art form, or I don't know, you're just kind of sitting there and trying to make a decision about whether you like that movie and being able to describe to somebody what you really like about it. I suppose because I'm in a couple of chats maybe with a couple of people where we're constantly recommending stuff to each other, and it's not just good enough to kind of say, oh, this is a really good movie. This is a really good movie because of this is a list of things, and if you have like-minded people of that ilk, then that's sort of encouraged. It's a bit like having, like, every time I watch a movie, I'm just thinking about doing a book think episode of it at the end, if you know what I mean, if you're going to recommend it to somebody and kind of exactly why this would appeal to somebody else or might not, you know.
Yeah, right. Yep. Steve, what about you?
Well, I think with I think if I didn't have, and this is gonna sound really cheesy and like I'm because like, but if I didn't have all of you and the group we have to talk about all this stuff, I think I'd feel differently about it. But I think because it's I think for the most part, we find a way to talk. All the stuff that we want to talk about, we find a way with someone to talk about. So it makes it easier. But I think if I didn't have the people around that we do, then it would be a problem. Then I would feel differently about it. But because we have the group we have, and because we have the camaraderie and like the ability to all, kind of spend time with each other, then it's different. But if I didn't have that, then I'd be probably pretty miserable. And just like, I'd have to learn how to shake that feeling off.
That's a good point, Steve, because there was that feeling that something was missing when I wasn't having these kind of chats before, when I wasn't looking at stuff, and like you mentioned, miserable. But I don't know if I go that far, but I was definitely not as happy when I finished like Bone Hunters, Malice and Bone Hunters the first time. I wanted to like go out and shout on the rooftop because I had nobody to tell about it. I had nobody to talk about it with, and that was frustrating. That's what I would call it, frustrating. So I'm very fortunate to have people like you guys to talk about this stuff with.
And that making content forces you to reflect. It'd be very easy to just finish a book, drop it, go to the shelf, lift another one, and just kind of keep like the train going, if you know what I mean, and not really thinking about whether the book affected you emotionally, what made you think about it. You're sort of not getting the value out of the art. It's a bit like walking around a museum looking at the artifacts and spending 5 seconds on each going, oh, isn't that cool, isn't that cool, isn't that cool, rather than let it kind of appreciate it in some way. So I think that's one of the reasons that we all, when somebody says, I'm going to read this thing, would anybody like to read along with me? It's very hard to say no, because by doing so, you're going to have a much more enriched and deeper reading experience because of it.
Yeah, especially to Varsha. It's hard to say no.
It was Malazan, because of which I started my channel, because I desperately wanted to talk about it, and like I'm hoping we eventually get to do a reading group on it. But it that was the series that I was like, I'll talk into the void. I don't care. I need to share how I feel about this series. So yeah, I understand that what you said, Jarrod.
Yeah, I think it's become like, I think it's important to have some kind of outlet and to have some way to and plus I've learned so much from all of you with just discussing a book or movie or whatever it is. It's like a constant, I feel like it's a constant growth and just different perspectives, and you just view everything differently now. Like I see things like the Green Knight. I was thinking about that the other day about, because I talk about the Green Knight, and I view that movie totally differently now, along with all the other ones we've seen. But it just enriches the experience so much. But if I feel like I didn't have that, I would have some kind of solo podcast or something. But it's just not not that there's anything wrong with solo podcasts. They can be really. I think there's good things about that too. But I think having different perspectives brings a whole new level. It brings a whole new. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah, and I also think it's pretty good for mental health, because every time you start a new project, a new book or whatever, you get fresh energy injected into your week, into your month, all the time, kind of going, right, I'm going to start this afresh, clean slate for Jarrod. That's his new page in his notebook. For his notes, it's going to be started, and he goes, right, clean page, let's go, new book, title at the top, date started, and you kind of, regardless of how the last book went or how someone's coming up, you're going to just treat that piece of reading on its own merits and kind of see what you think of it. And then as is fun, and this is where the camaraderie, I suppose, really pays off. When you start doing it, you're like, oh my god, I don't want to sound stupid. God, I've seen this thing, but I don't maybe want to bring that to the fore or say that, because maybe this is just nonsense. But then you realise that actually all opinions are valid. If you know what I mean, somebody else says something, you're like, I never even considered that. That's absolutely incredible. And actually that encourages each other to, to say more.
Yep, so it does. And it's been great too, because a lot of the discussion we've had on various things, everybody brings their own angle to it, and everybody gives me a new perspective and a new idea on all the stuff we talk about. And it's been pretty rewarding in that sense too.
Yeah.
And Steve loves it. So I was going to say, Steve loves a project as well, like a challenge or something like that. So whether it's a run of Alien movies or it's 24 movies in 24 days.
Oh boy, that was fun though.
A lot of great movies in it. Like, it really helps that there's so many fantastic movies in it.
Oh, are you doing any challenge things?
And plus, it keeps you motivated.
Right.
No, go ahead, Varsha. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, are you doing any challenge things this year?
Sorry.
The only challenge I have for myself so far is to not buy any more first books in a series.
Oh.
That's my challenge. So I will not, if I don't already own book one, I won't start any other series. So I went out and bought a bunch of book ones in December.
Just get them out of your system, yeah.
Just to get them, just in case. Like, I have all these book ones, just in case.
Yeah.
Oh, the Sacred Hunt, yeah.
Oh,
the Sacred Hunt duology.
Michelle West. Oh, yeah. That looks pretty.
It's on my
I was
Kindle.
going to say, that's a book 1 and 2, though, is it, GB? That's a geology, was it? Yeah.
It is a duology, but for the larger series it's a part of, that would make it right now book 1 of 19.
Nice. Wow.
Actually 20 if you count the a little short story collection.
But I mean, I'm down. I mean, we can do a challenge. I mean, don't tempt me with a good time. But yeah, I'm up for a challenge. I think movies are easier because they're shorter, and we could do it in advance and So yeah, we can do something. We can do something fun. Yeah. Don't get my gears going because I'll come up with something. I'll come up with something stupid that you're all going to hate me for. But and plus, whenever we do like reading stuff, it keeps me motivated because sometimes you know that you have to, and not like you have to, but you don't want to. You want to be, up to. You want to like be a part of the experience, and when you miss out on it, then it's like a big bummer. So it motivates you to keep up when you can.
Dude. Like we have the greatest challenge of all going. The 18-year friendship.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who'll stay? Who'll leave?
I will just clarify and say we're only 6 books in, so it's going well so far.
Half a year.
Yes.
Half a year down.
Go, Tim.
17 and a half to go.
Only.
Oh, God.
That is my favorite thing that we started last year. I love the SF Masterworks discussion series, and I think they're a big highlight of every month, and those are books that I've been wanting to read for a while. So
that's an interesting point, Varsha. Is like the sci-fi Masterworks stuff. Like I was not a sci-fi reader at all, so going into this, it was all new to me. And even though we're all not liking some of the books, that was a whole new facet of discussion that I didn't even dream of when I started my channel. Because I thought I was just going to be talking about stuff that I liked, and that was it. And so this is you brought a new dimension to my perception of reading and discussing stuff, so it's good.
But it is that thing,
how to
isn't it?
politely talk about things we don't like. So.
Or not politely.
Yeah.
It's just not for me. Was my favorite line.
Yeah, we don't, we weren't enamored with, Cities of Flight and maybe Babel 17 for some of us, and but we still had lots of neat stuff to say about them. So
it turned an average read in some cases into like a really pleasurable experience, and being able to discuss those things. Even people who DNF the book didn't get more than halfway through it or something, or like I want to hear what I missed out on or why it worked for somebody else and not for me, etc. There's cool thematic stuff in it for sure. Yeah, it's a different one.
Yeah. Sometimes the hardest thing about a review or kind of sharing your thoughts on something you didn't enjoy is how to explain it, how to not be nasty about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to be. Yeah. You don't have to be insulting, and you can still say what you thought was the weak points of a book without garnering that kind of negativity towards it,
And Varsha, I thought we were starting Malazan in June.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Or July.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that general ballpark.
That general vicinity.
Finish the second apocalypse, right?
I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun.
Can you hear me okay? I've been feeling some weird echoes and stuff. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, your video's frozen, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
But thankfully there's like no goofy faces yet. So when there's a goofy face we'll tell you. But you're good so far.
The only interesting face was when Chibi was talking about the Seattle bookshops. She just froze on like a I'm judging you face. Just right at that moment. Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm thankful for all of you, and
Ditto.
I'm really, it's a really great group. So
Yes.
Agreed.
For sure.
so many different perspectives and personalities, and everyone's like respectful, and like, you know, we can like we can disagree on something and still be like, hey, that's cool, like let's talk about it anyway. You know, I hated it, but let's still talk about it.
Have to find more things we disagree on though.
So,
that would be even more fun.
What's funny is like when we usually one of us doesn't like something, we usually come out of the conversation, oh, I like it more now that we talked about it.
That's happened multiple times with me for sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Varsha, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, Chris, I think I caught your thumbnail making bug. Especially when you get to use AI to generate stuff. That's a lot of fun.
Thumbnails are fun. Thumbnails are just the best.
I made the thumbnails for the podcast that I'm publishing for the SF Masterworks. That was a lot of fun to make. So I understand now.
Oh, it's the tools. It's just so satisfying when you kind of move things about and you change maybe one colour and you go, no, that looks even better than it did beforehand, or you know, you just.
I hate thumbnails. I don't know how you guys like that. It's like torture.
Yeah. I take the first image I see and I say, "Yep, good enough."
So I have a template for each thing I do on my channel, so I just copy paste that for every new thing. Like for every Warrior Prophet episode, I had the same thumbnail. I changed the chapter name. Same with like the Johnny Words ones. And I have a thing I do for each book discussion, like solo book discussion that I put up. I know exactly what to do once I have the book, the cover of the book. So I have a process that helps.
Yeah. So who wants to go next with what they've been reading? I guess we should talk about that too.
I was wondering if you guys did any wrap-up stuff.
I think for some of the rest of us,
a
lot of us have been reading similar books. So I suppose if I go, I'll cover some of Jarrod's and Varsha's and yourselves as well. So talk about Babel 17 very quickly, which was the SF Masterworks, since we're on the train there. A story that is like the movie Arrival, which we also read the short story of, which we'll come to in a while, in that it sort of involves a linguistics expert who's been sent out to basically crack the code of a language to aid like a war effort of some sort. It's sort of like analogous to the Enigma machines of World War II, something like that. And I mean, it starts off like that, and then it kind of goes in a little wander around being kind of a bit of action, and then it has lots of, I think, very cool ideas. I think I liked it better than Jarrod, Varsha. I think it was only me and Livia that I think really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I thought it was interesting enough with some of its ideas in it to merit reading. And as usual for these things, like, they're so good, they're so short. That might be my favourite bit, because it never feels too much like a slog to get to the end of an idea or something of that ilk.
Have book lengths changed over time? Is it? I wonder if fantasy books in the somebody may know. I might be, but I wonder if the length of fantasy books that now today would be 600 to 800 pages were shorter then, or is that in the last? Has that changed, or has it always been longer?
I'm trying to think of all the 70s stuff I read, and like the longest stuff was the stuff that was trying to imitate Tolkien back then. And if you look at the Lord of the Rings, the individual books, they're nowhere near as long as the books today. You know, they're longer than like the actual pocket books that were coming out in the 60s and 70s, but they're not longer than like the classics, you know.
I think you
like
can
some Dickens,
stick all three of them together, and they're not like they're not like too much longer than something like this.
No, right, exactly. And so I think that the book length has definitely gotten more as we moved into the 90s and 2000s and stuff, because I was picking up fantasy series in the 80s, and they were, if they hit 500 pages, you thought it was a chunker. Today, 500 is almost normal, if not 600. And and I'm not sure what spurned that glut of words to his stories.
Robert Jordan.
You may be right there.
Legitimately, it's like you look at, and there's been others who followed his trend, but it's like you look at some of the Wheel of Time books, and they're enormous. Like and another good example of it is Sanderson with Stormlight. Those books are way too big.
Yeah, but those are a little more recent,
right? But it's a continuation.
Jordan.
Trend.
Yeah, Jordan was the early '90s when he first started.
Yeah,
with that series.
Yeah, I think he's the first big example of it. But
and like The Eye of the World and Great Hunt are probably the shortest of the books. The first two, and then they just get gradually bigger and bigger as it goes on. So. Because I remember getting the Horse Clan series in the 80s, and they're these thin little things you can literally stick in your back pocket. And so, I don't know. There was some kind of mental switch from sword and sorcery style of fantasy to epic style of fantasy, and when people tried to imitate Tolkien, things got bigger because they thought they had to be more epic, I guess. That's kind of what I attribute it to.
You obviously, anybody that reads fantasy has a different concept of a chunker compared to people that read other genres. Like, I know there was this year, remember the Booker Prize nominations came out, and one of the books was 600 pages, and people lost their minds over it being 600 pages. What is this book being on the list for? This isn't right. What is happening, etc. But we obviously 600 pages. I still think it's a long book, even for a fantasy book, especially when it's going to be book one of however many. But it's not the end of the world.
Though I did look it up, and for sci-fi and fantasy, and I guess you'd fit it in there in horror. At least the longest one that someone had dug up is 667,000 words, and was written in 1845.
Wow.
Yeah, some of that 19th century stuff is some of the 19th century stuff can get pretty long sometimes. But as far as modern fantasy goes, it's definitely on the upward trend.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about it. It's like, I don't know. Well, this list that someone's got, looks like, they may look like it, but it looks like, at least in the top 20, Jordan's not even in there. They've got some stuff going back old, but Jordan is Lord of Chaos, his sixth, the longest well-timed novel. It's like 395,000 words. But so actually, and I think about it, Tad Williams would probably be the forerunner for modern stuff on that, because his books are always big. Our most current guy is obviously Brandon Sanderson, because, like I said, Stormlight books are way too big. Like, I look at them in paperback and I'm like, who would buy this? This will fall apart after one read.
Like Elantris is what, like 1,300 pages or something?
Yeah, it's like that's insane for a mass market paperback.
Yeah,
and not much.
I mean, and some of the Erickson books are big too, and that they're very long. And yes.
Tell the Hounds is our longest Erickson. He's at 389,000 words.
Jeez.
Yep.
It's a lot of words.
But so Chris's delight at the
Exactly
shortness of these masterworks is well founded.
Well, it always means that if you give yourself a week to read it, you can make it easily. Like it's absolutely fine. Like it's not like you have to plan it out a long time ahead. Like if we were doing SF Masterworks and they're all 600 pages each, you'd need a weekly ration to make sure that you were keeping up to date, so that you weren't having a heart attack or it wasn't causing you undue stress. Whereas these, a couple of good solid days reading and it's done. That's interesting for that.
Yeah. But I found with Erickson, it's easy to break it up because he writes in the short story style, where he writes like you can read a segment and get a full you can get a sort of a completion out of just that segment and just come back to it later, and so whereas I think like with Jordan with Wheel of Time, you're reading 100 pages and you're still reading the same scene, and it can that's long.
Yeah, with all the Wheel of Time, 4,360,000 words for all the books.
So I guess it depends on how you approach the books you're reading.
For sure. Aside from that, other things I've been reading together. I know I missed the discussion, but started The Fade Out by Ebery Baker and Sean Phillips again.
Just bloody genius. I love that series.
It's so good. It's so good. I actually, I don't know if any of you know actually how representative it is of Hollywood at that time. Like how things are very, very close to how the studio system used to work and the kind of dealings that used to go on. It's a lot of it's very, there's lots and lots of books on that period of Hollywood as being sort of accurate in a lot of ways of how those relationships worked and the ghostwriters, and especially the flushing out of communist sympathizers from the whole of Hollywood at that time was all just like most walks of American life at that time, but how people would just have to ghostwrite and do all of that kind of stuff was very much true to life of things that happened at that time. But great artwork, great story writing, great dialogue, great storylines. Yeah, really enjoying it so far.
It's so good.
Yeah, that was a fun discussion too. The first 4 issues we had. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Sure. That's good. And then obviously Grand Conspiracy, which we'll be talking about tomorrow for chapters 4 to 6. It's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. It is just every time you read in a section, and I think I've actually worked out how long it takes me to do. Like we only do like 120 pages or something out of this, like every 2 weeks. It's about 5 hours reading for me. Like, it is not inconsequential at all, but it's so meaty.
Thank you for saying that.
It's so meaty, and so much happens that I would fear if we went above 3 chapters, because it would just be like, I don't know, we'd just have to skip over so much stuff, and it wouldn't have anywhere as near a hold on my, opening the page to kind of get another chunk to kind of go, this is so rich. This is so good. Mm-hmm. All of the character interactions, especially now we're at a stage, it feels like there's not that many new characters ever coming along. We get recurring characters coming back, and as soon as you see a name, you have a feeling for how it's going to be, but also it depends on the character's state of mind at that time, and all of that kind of stuff. Oh, it's so rich and so good. There's no doubt. Every book that continues in this series doesn't feel like, it's just more of that stuff, which it's like we're bashing on Wheel of Time, but Wheel of Time definitely did feel like another bit of the story rather than kind of building on the story, which I think is a very big distinct difference. But it's just phenomenal. Can't wait to discuss.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And I think Janie does a great job of I love how she breaks up her chapters and so you can read in those sections of those chapters and get something full out of it. And you can take a break, you can stop and go back and read the next section. And I love how it's all. I love how it's put together. I love how it's presented, and of course, it's hard to beat her prose.
Phenomenal.
I'm glad, just because the one chapter would have takes me I don't know, hours.
There's no rushing through it like either. You just
you
can't speed read. It doesn't invite speed reading at all, because it just does feel like you're missing the essence of the book. Then, if that makes sense, what makes it so good is sort of comes in. I have to say, like, so far, this isn't a short road to being the best of the series so far. Definitely for me, like, there's just so much interesting stuff that seems to happen every chapter, and it's not as heavy and dark as Fugitive Prince was. Oh my god, I was like, I just feel like giving up. Nothing good can happen with any of these people now. It's something altogether. So what else? Well, we could talk about the sci-fi stuff we've been reading, which has been about Ted Chiang's short stories from Stories of Your Life and Others.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think for me and for some of us, it's good. It's not great. Like, it's not. It often gets compared on a fantasy end to Paper Menagerie and stuff like can do. It's nowhere near on that level for me. Where I just found all of those stories like phenomenally profound, like emotional, all of that kind of stuff. And for the most part, Ted Chiang's stories are sort of enjoyable, interesting, but miss the mark just ever so slightly.
Yeah, they're okay. They're okay. It's not like they're poorly done or anything. They're definitely well written, but they're just not. I don't think I'm really gonna talk about that collection as like one of my favorite of all times or whatever. It's gonna be something I read and moved on, and but it's not like, but they're definitely not bad. It's not a bad. It's a good, it's a decent book. It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's all right. It's a bit like the SF Masterworks. They're interesting to discuss. Like, because we're only doing one a week, they're always, I sort of dread getting a really good one that's really, really good, because those podcasts are long enough as they are. Imagine we really get into something, it'll be something else. But yeah. I started Annihilation, of course. First chapter of. And I think we're all in agreement this is extremely exciting. Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. Yeah.
Super good fun. So we're only a chapter in, but like the way that he writes, Jeff Vandermeer. Jack, I was going to change his name. Vandermeer, and not leading you by the nose too much, by just giving you what you need and kind of keeping the mystery going up and all that kind of stuff. I can't wait to finish this book, even though I'm only allowed to read one chapter this week. Strict instructions.
I'm only allowed to read one chapter.
That's right.
The boss is giving me evil stares. I don't know. Oh dear. Two other quick ones that I've been reading. I've been reading a bit of manga. I was reading Full Metal Alchemist. Started this one. I've had to stop at the end of the first one because the second one's out of print, and I can't not buy these beautiful hardcovers. So I could just Kindle them, but I sort of know a lot of the story already, or I think I know a lot of the story already. So I'm not in a rush to keep on going. They are way more thematically rich than the anime. But I would say even from this first volume, there are a lot of ideas that are explored a bit more fully, a bit probably like Berserk in a lot of ways, insofar as the anime does a lot of the actiony stuff without dwelling too much on, but a couple of very noticeable exceptions, like the Chimera episode, for instance, in the anime is like there's nobody in floods of tears, not in floods of tears at the end of that episode, for instance, but like the kind of the role of God, all of that kind of stuff, like it's so good in here. Like, I can't wait to continue on. And like, they are the most beautiful hardback editions of ever. And then the last thing that I started is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which is a chunker.
Oh, wow.
It's a big book, which I think is a pretty good one to keep going in the background when you have a couple of days when you can knock out another 50 or 100 pages or so and just keep it going. I don't think there's anything happening in it so far that would really need you to keep on reading it all the time. Very, very character heavy at the moment. Really interesting characters that you like and sort of root for, and get it just in much the same way as Johnny kind of does. You just get a slither bit more every chapter, every bit that you get another little bit about what makes the person. You know, and kind of what makes that person interesting. So people that you kind of first introduced to going, don't like them, don't trust them, and then you get to know more about them, and then a bit like our friend Dakar, for instance, suddenly they start to become, oh, I understand you, I know what's happening with you, I like you a lot. You know, that exterior that you're purporting to show other people isn't the story. So that I'll just be chipping along with that for a lot of months, I think. Mainly because it's very easy to digest, and it has these just rich character moments, just chapter to chapter of little things that happen between them, and give you an idea of what they're doing. So that's my that's been the amount of reading that I don't know if you've been paying attention. That's a lot more reading than I've done in a long time.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you find that reading bits and pieces is easier or is more enjoyable for you than reading chunks at a time in one book? Is it better for you to jump a little bit and take bites?
Normally I would have said no, because I like to finish a book and then kind of have that feeling of starting something new. But because we're discussing them at the end of each of these chunks, it changes, but exactly what we were talking about earlier, it changes the process of the reading to create that moments of enjoyment throughout the book rather than just at the end of it. You know, sometimes you can be reading a 400-page book, you get to page 250 and you're going, oh, I'm having to push through this bit's dragging a little bit in the middle, and you kind of think, should I just start another book, or I should buy another book one. That's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'm missing out of my life. But because we're doing them kind of every 100 pages or so, then it means there's always that finite end, and it always gives you something to aim for. Like, I know by the time on a certain time on a Friday or a Sunday every 2 weeks I'm gonna have to have this amount finished, and it always means that I'm making progress. And for anybody that wants to be a habitual reader, I think that regularity is very good for keeping you moving forward and progressing.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. And I know Varsha's no stranger to having 6 or 7 books open at once, as well as myself.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Revels in it. But it does make for a weird experience when you're kind of talking about what did you read this month. Well, I've finished no books, and I'm halfway through about 6 or 7 books, but by the end of next month I'll be able to talk loads, and then people say, you finished 7 big books that month, and you're like, sure.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun though, because like you said, Chris, I mean, I always had a couple books going before I started getting involved with read-alongs and stuff like that. I always had 2 or 3 books going, depending on because I read one at work during my lunch break, and I read one at home, and you know, I do stuff like that, and of course, I would always you know, I'm always reading comics in between as well, so you know, I'm breaking it up in that manner. But then once I started doing read-alongs and stuff like that, then it got even crazier, because you know, you're reading some and stopping, and you know, like you said, and but I don't know, it's kind of a blast. I like it a lot.
I think comics really help. Even reading Berserk, I think, helps break things up a little bit and kind of I was about to say it's an easier read. It's
all relative.
It's with the visuals. It's not as
it's different.
Yeah, different.
Yeah. And it's a good point about the comics, because comics actually force you if you're doing a monthly comic, force you to put the story aside for a month until the next issue comes out. You know, even if you're doing it by trade, if there's more than one trade, you're still forced to put it aside until the next trade comes out. And that's almost like a training for what I'm doing now with regular books.
Yeah.
You practiced all your
It's so
life
hard,
for read-alongs.
Yeah.
Right.
You've been training for this.
Yeah. It's been rough, but we did it.
It was a long road to get here.
What about you, Jarrod? What are you reading this month? We're prepared.
Well, I finished Orb Scepter Throne by Ian Esselmont, the fourth book in the novels of the Malazan Empire. It's a reread that I'm rereading all Malazan Journey here, and I'm rereading him in publication order. So that's the book that was published after Toll the Hounds, the eighth book in the Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen, and it was probably my favorite Esselmont book so far, out of the ones he's written. It's a direct sequel to Total Hounds, and so it was very integrated with that. And so I really enjoyed it a lot. And it's actually one of the few Malazan books with kind of a happy ending. There actually was like, oh wow, things worked out for some of these characters, but which doesn't happen often. And anybody who's read Malazan knows that. But so that was cool. I finished that off. Getting into Dust of Dreams next for my reread, and besides the ones that Chris mentioned, I did read The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway. That was very interesting, and I had a discussion with Joanna about that on my channel, and that was very contemporary literature. It's more like a long novella than an actual novel. It's quite thin, but it was cool. It was I actually liked it because I read Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is a much longer book, and I don't know, I was kind of bored in a lot of sections with that book. It didn't. I was, and so I was, The Old Man and the Sea. I was like, okay, here's Hemingway again. But it was actually quite gripping. It was actually it went by quick, and it was cool. I liked it. What else did I finish? I finished Wistful Ascending by Joe Byrne.
Oh, nice.
That was a blast. That was a ton of fun. So I really had a good time with that one. Yeah. So a lot of cool stuff. Space bears. I mean, come on, it's great. It's fun.
Have you read Invincible, Jarrod?
Robert Kirkman?
I have. Let me correct that. I read like the first 2 trades.
Did you
of Invincible.
Did you notice any crossover there?
With Wistful? Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, you get the Superman-like dude, but other than that, I think Joe Byrne took quite a different tact towards that kind of hero. What I like what that Wistful did was it had nothing to do with Earth for the most part. I mean, Earth was mentioned, but it was really somewhere else, and I kind of like that. It wasn't like Earth was the center of the universe type thing. That most your Superman and clone stories are. All those type of superhero stories are derivative of each other, with their those type of stories, they haven't moved beyond the original idea of Superman. Yeah. Beyond just making the character different somehow, so as far as that goes, yeah, is it similar that it's a superhuman dude who's powerful? Yeah, but it was different enough within that very small genre. Yeah. It was different enough. Yeah
because Joe, he mentions Invincible being a big inspiration for him for writing Blissful Ascending. So
okay,
I saw the omnibus yesterday or a couple of days ago at the comic book store, and I almost picked it up. But
every Robert Kirkman story I've read, I get sick of it after 1 or 2 volumes.
Wow.
Yeah, every single, like Walking Dead, Invincible. He did something else too. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it always starts off with a neat idea and a bang, and then it seems I don't know what it is, but his stories I get tired of them. I don't know if he repeats himself or the idea just doesn't. He doesn't. It doesn't seem to grow. And it kind of stays stale after a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's quite the list you have there, Jarrod.
And that's what I finished.
Oh. Okay.
Buckle up.
What? What? Sorry. What I'm reading right now, I'm still doing my monthly Assassin's Apprentice comparison from the comic to the novel, and it's really weird because like I read a chapter and a half of the novel this month because that's how much the comic covered. So it's like reading the novel, I'm going so slow, but reading the comics are really cool because it really is like the best adaptation I've ever seen in a comic book of a novel.
Wow.
And so if you haven't picked up the Assassin's Apprentice comics, they're really good. So I'm doing that. And I'm also reading. I've. What's funny about the short stories we're reading for the science fiction? What's the name of it? Speculative speculations. What's funny about that is I had already told myself I was going to read more short stories this year. And of course, Varsha comes along and says, "Hey, you're reading short stories with us." And I'm like, "Okay." And,
glad to help, Jarrod.
So,
glad to help.
Yeah, cool. And but I also I started reading some short stories out of a book called Swords and Dark Magic, which has been pretty cool because it's had an Erickson story in there, and had a Gene Wolfe story in there, and some other ones too, and it's been pretty good. I read a couple of those. I read Nightfall with Asimov with you guys. That was cool. And then I read. I'm reading another short story collection called Tales Before Tolkien, which were stories from the 19th century that might have influenced Tolkien. I read a couple of those. Just one here and there in between stuff. So that's and doing that and Stories of Your Life with Ted Chiang, yeah. And I am also in the middle of The Spirit Cuts Through Water. It's Simon Jimenez. That's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Really unique, really unique novel. Enjoying that a lot. And yeah, I'll stop there.
No, stop there. Tell us what else you're reading. I've been looking up Simon Jimenez now.
Yeah, I got that. And what else am I reading?
Which Jimenez book are you reading? The Spear Cuts Through Water?
The Spear Cuts Through Water,
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. And then, I'm going to move on to Dust and Dreams. I'm going to move on to Lord of Light by Zelazny for our next sci-fi masterwork. And I think that covers everything.
That's all? Do you find it challenging to, when you're reading more than a couple of fantasy books, do you find it challenging to keep up with characters and locations and lore and histories and stuff?
No, I'm doing all right.
Okay.
Doing okay. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I compartmentalize pretty well. So I don't know. Yeah, when I'm in that world, I'm in that world. You know what I mean? And then when I'm not in it, I'm not. And so that's just that's how I break it up, I guess.
Yes. And Varsha, you have to tell us about the podcast, Speculations.
Speculation. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a sci-fi podcast that I bullied all of you to come discuss books with me, sci-fi books specifically. There's a bunch of series that we're going to work our way through. We started with the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer, but on the list of series that we might read eventually are Dune and the Mars trilogy and the Tchaikovsky trilogy, which is called what? Children of Time?
Yep.
We've got a whole list of books to work our way down, and we also are reading one short story every week currently, like Chris and Jarrod mentioned. We're reading Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, but eventually we'll pick up more older sci-fi short stories as well, because I think in the 60s, 50s, sci-fi was primarily published as short stories, and those with the sci-fi of ideas and exploration and thought experiments. So those should all be fun to discuss. So we'll do all of that in the podcast called Speculative Speculations. The original title for the podcast was Average Intelligence, but the name was taken. So
Still sad about that.
Someone found out I was on the podcast, so like, he is not average. He's way below average intelligence.
No.
You can't do that.
Other way.
yeah. So so should I do my wrap-up thing now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we're reading Annihilation. Like they said, I'll try to skip over books that Chris and Jarrod already talked about, because I'm reading a lot of the reading groups I am into, or I bullied them into.
Inspired is the word you're looking for. Inspired. Not bullied.
Inspired. I inspired the reading groups. I did finish books this month, so that's a change from the last couple of times I was on here. I finished The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. I was listening to this on audiobook with my husband.
Oh,
Fun.
Fun.
And so my husband and I have been listening to some audiobook during our commute. He prefers comedy. So we've been alternating between Discworld and Douglas Adams. So we finished The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. We did not start the next Discworld book. However, we started the first 3 minutes because we wanted to listen to some physics stuff. So by Steven Weinberg. So we're listening to that. And then we finished Warrior Prophet this month, which we're reading for the Prince of Nothing series discussion. We're discussing that one, 100 pages every week. We are on a brief break for a couple of weeks, and then we'll start, what's the next one called? The Thousandfold Thought.
Mm-hmm.
And what else did I read? I read Nephilim's Hex and Anachrony. Oh yeah, I'm currently reading Truth of Crowns, but I'll get to the currently reading list in just a second. Steve was holding up the book. But Nephilim's Hex, which is the third book in the Timelessness series by Susanna Imaginary, who comes on this podcast quite a bit. And Anachrony. One of those, maybe, pronunciations. But I finished both of those. I've been listening to those on audio. That's everything I finished. I have a head start. Goodreads tells me I'm 2 books ahead of my schedule for the goal. But I'm cheating because most of these I was already reading in January.
It's okay. Still counts.
Did you guys lose me for a sec?
No.
Am I still lost? Okay.
No.
So those were the books I finished. And then currently reading, I have 15 books in my currently reading list, but I'm actually not reading all of them. I just have them as reminders to start.
Wow. 15.
It's ridiculous.
I definitely think you
it's all
change
books
the
that
name
I
of this
want
channel.
to start soon, and Can you guys hear me okay?
You're still there.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm. You're good, Varsha.
Oh, there she goes. I think she froze.
The connection
I'm
couldn't
back.
handle the currently
Yay.
reading
Yay.
list. Oh.
I had to change. I had to change my Wi-Fi again. Okay. Did you hear me say I had 15 books in my currently reading?
Still digesting it, yes.
Good.
We're still recovering.
So I'm not,
Yes.
so I'm not actually reading 15 books. I just have a short-term books I want to start soon, which I already have a couple of shelves for, and it was getting ridiculous how I was tracking those, so I put everything here. I've got to remove some. Anyway, Truth of Crowns. I am reading that one by Carl D. Albert, who joins us on the Prince of Nothing discussion groups. But yeah, I'm 3/4 of the way in almost. That book's some fun, although he's been hurting some people that I was fond of, and I'm not happy with them about it. And then I started the next book in Timelessness, Anamnesis. I have to ask Susanna how to pronounce all these titles. But yeah, I just started that. I'm about 15 minutes into the audiobook, so not a whole lot of progress there. And then I started Morning and Evening by Jean Fosse. He won the Nobel Prize last year. Another thing that I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's a very short book, and it starts at the birth of a baby named Johan, I think, and then it continues on as Johannes is dying, is on his deathbed. So I think they're the same person. I think it tells the story of this baby's life. But yeah, I'm just reading that a little bit at a time. And that one's been interesting so far. We already talked about the first 3 minutes. I still have the Voyage of the Basilisk going on. I haven't made much progress there. Spinning Silver I read quite a bit of this month by Naomi Novik. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of it plays with a lot of different fairy tales, and it feels like it picks up where those fairy tales left off and is examining the consequences of that for each of those stories. Like the one with Rumpelstiltskin, is that the one where she was signing away her firstborn, and then there's the one about what was it, the shoemaker's daughter who gets locked into a room and she has to spin a whole bunch of cloth. So there's all these short fairy tales that are like sort of retold in this book, but then what's being examined is the consequences of those actions. And I love all the characters in this book. I'm really enjoying this one. Also I'm listening on audiobook. and The Count of Monte Cristo. I started this one after we finished The Stars My Destination. I'm only about like 60 pages in. It's going to take me, I don't know, maybe check back in December. I would have finished this by then. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I started this after Stars My Destination, which we read for the SF Masterworks series. And that book was highly inspired by this one. And I was curious to see what it was based on. So that's what I'm reading. What are you reading, Steve?
Sure. Well, I actually have a question for you about The Prince of Nothing. Is it, because I'm sure you've heard a lot about how dark and bleak and everything else it is. Is it what you expected, or is it your expectations going into the series? What are your thoughts on that now?
Steve? Or did I get dropped off from the call again? No. Okay.
Did you hear anything I said? Are you still there, Varsha? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Did I drop off?
Varsha's video and all's coming through nice and clear for me.
Was that? Oh, so we're did I don't see Steve's video, so I was wondering if I had a weird connection again. But yeah, anyway, so that's been what I've been reading. When I finish Truth of Crowns, I'll probably go back to The Voyage of the Basilisk and finish that one.
Nice.
Oh, I also started Dictator, which I haven't put on the currently reading list yet, but that's the third book of the Cicero trilogy. So I switch up the books I read just before I go to sleep. I need them to be lightweight, easy to read things so that I can remember what happened even if I fall asleep on them the next day. So I am probably going to read Dictator like that when I finish Voyage of the Basilisk.
You enjoying Cicero?
I did, yeah. It was very easy to read, and I liked the story. We studied Julius Caesar when I was in school, the Shakespeare play, and turns out I remember absolutely nothing about it, even though I studied it for 2 years. But I do remember like the larger strokes of that, so it was interesting to see that from a different perspective.
Nice.
And I think I want to go back and read the play at some point. But
can you hear me okay now?
Yep.
Or is it just me?
No, these are all coming through clear for me.
Oh, okay.
mm-hmm.
Hey,
You there, Varsha? Or is it just me? So I guess, well, until Varsha can hear me.
Jarrod was saying something? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But until Varsha comes through back, circles back, I have a question for everyone.
Has anyone started the second chapter of Annihilation yet?
Not yet.
not yet.
You're worried you'll want to read on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably wait for that until
Yeah.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Mm.
So.
Yeah.
It's a quick read, so.
I want to see what... I'm nervous about 72 letters. That's a particularly long one. And... I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good scope that we'd understand, because it wasn't as dense
Yeah, it wasn't. It's very readable.
as the others in terms of the technical stuff you put in. But I had other objections to it. I did like it though. I did enjoy. I think one of you said it. I did like and enjoy every single story on there. But there was something off about each one. Although the ideas themselves were interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So yesterday we taught Grimdark on the Friday conversation. We discussed fairy tales. And I have a question for all of you, because we discussed this yesterday, which will be posted next Friday on the podcast. But are fairy tales grimdark? Even think back to like the early Disney movies. Bambi, Pinocchio, Dumbo. There's some pretty dark stuff.
I was even thinking of
tales.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's a pretty grim, dark story in its own right. Like it's when I remember somebody had written an English lesson on about how people use assumptions to tell a story, but they actually give them the story, and then you ask people questions afterwards, and they give you the answers based on a version of that story they've been told rather than the actual one that they've got. But the idea that this girl does a home invasion, and breaks in the house, steals their food, sleeps in their beds, and then feels like she's some eternal right to be there, you know. It's a horror movie, and any other name.
Yep. How dare you kick
exactly.
me out of your house?
Right?
Yeah.
Did you read The Little Mermaid, the Hans Christian Andersen, the original story? It was in this collection that
a long
my
time ago.
uncle gave me, and it has a very dark ending. I think in the version that I read as a child, she marries one of the princes or something, and she lives happily ever after and so on. But the actual story, she does the main story have the thing about where her feet hurt like hell and she can't cry, and there's all kinds of problems with her physical body, but she changes anyway. Anyway, the ending of The Little Mermaid, she turns into foam in the ocean, and that's it. Like, that's her ending. She doesn't end up with either one. She's like, oh, you made a bad decision. Now this is how you suffer for it.
Yeah,
Face the consequences.
Turning to foam, though, I think at some point it gets the little happy-ish ending for her, but like, her supposedly her soul just disintegrates too. She doesn't get to go to heaven or anything. She's just like, nope. And then I think some version of it got adjusted to be like, oh no, she, did get to go because blah blah blah. I don't know. It's been a while since I read.
So you're telling me she doesn't become part of your world? This is unbelievable.
See? Grimdark.
Yeah, that one was pretty shocking. And the rest of that collection had some really dark stories too. I think that was the one which also had a story where a mother loses a child, and then she follows, I think, goes to an underworld of sorts to make a bargain, and then the typical story about like you have to bring me another child to replace the one you died, and then the one who died, and then she can't bring herself to replace any other child. But I think these are children's stories again. What?
Grimdark's for everybody, not for.
I read them as a child, and they were impactful.
So, this month I've been reading lots of comic books for the Comic Book Podcast. Too many to list. It's been a lot, but having fun with that. First chapter of Annihilation. I really like that book, and I'm almost glad I watched the movie because it gives me a good picture in my head of what the Area X looks like. The hardest part was not reading past chapter 1. The hardest part. The Fade Out, reading that with all of you, with Brubaker and Phillips, and you can't beat that group. The people who talk about how comic books isn't a good storytelling, I guess, format. I just wonder, are they just looking at like capes and cowls kind of thing, or what? Because they're missing out on some really great storytelling. Varsha can't hear me. She's just nodding what I'm saying. So I can say anything. She'll just nod. So I won't take that. I won't take advantage of that. So also been reading The Fugitive Prince. I'm trying to catch up to all of you, and it's proven harder than I expected because it's just takes me forever to get through. We finished The Warrior Prophet. That was my second read through that one, and there was a lot of things that happen in that book that how can I say this? That are very important to the rest of the series, I guess you can say. So it was fun to go back and know what certain things meant because I've read the series before. So it's fun to kind of say, oh, that's what that was. And yeah. And also reading Truth of Crowns by Carl D. Albert. Carl is a friend and part of our little group. And the book starts off pretty, I don't want to say predictable, but it's kind of like, fantasy, setting up the world. And then everyone starts dying and everyone's like there's double crosses and betrayals. And it's like one thing after another after another. It's a tragedy. It's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy. That so I've been impressed with. He just goes for it. So so anyway, Truth of Crowns, it is darker than I expected it to be, but it's taken off quite a bit. I'm trying to think. Oh, and of course, reading Berserk.
Oh, yeah.
We are on volume 34. We have about 11 to go, I think. So we're almost there.
Wow.
Almost
Still
there.
as good. Not tailing off.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think there are lulls. I feel like you almost have to have a break sometimes. I think you almost need like the lulls and like the story has to dip. You can't be at 10 all the time. But yeah, I'm not. I don't feel like I'm getting tired or that I'm wanted to be over. I am wondering how it's going to end. And I hope it does end someday. Can you hear me now, Varsha?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I was just saying lots of awful things, and you were just there nodding when I was talking.
I couldn't hear anything. I
was like, Varsha likes to kill puppies, and you're like, nodding.
Nodding.
It was really bizarre. Everybody's quiet, and I was like, why isn't anybody saying anything? Because I couldn't hear you, but you were talking.
Oh dear.
Sorry if I interrupted you. I couldn't hear you. I thought I was filling the silence. If I may have interrupted you there a couple of times.
No, that's okay. No, I was just wrapping up my wrap up, but I wanted to ask you in your expectations for The Prince of Nothing. What are your expectations going in? How different is it now that you've been through 2 books?
I think the main expectation I had for it was that it would be a super dark book, and well, I suppose it fulfills that expectation, but not quite in the way that I know I've heard some people talk about it. Like, I mean, the way people go on about how dark and how dark it is I expected a rape on every other page or something like that. It wasn't like that, so it wasn't. It broke my expectations that way, that the darkness seems to have some meaning that I don't know yet, but seems to have a point that I'd like to understand. Kind of like Malazan a little bit. There are some things that are arguably very dark, but they have a purpose. So this seems to be like that. So it wasn't just unmitigated, like, here, see how bad I can get with what cruel things I can do to my characters, Like, it wasn't just that. It's the purposeful, so I don't mind that too much. And I did expect to enjoy the writing quite a bit, so that hasn't disappointed. I like his style and the philosophy. And I don't... There are some sections that I really enjoyed. Like, I think we talked about the one about doubt, and the one where 2 people become friends, and the one where 2 old friends meet. I liked all of those. So, yeah, it's lived up to my expectations on how much I enjoyed the writing.
That sounds sweet. 2 friends meeting up. That sounds good.
It was.
It's basically a rom-com.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Grim dark rom-com. Awesome.
Yeah. And also, Varsha, I was asking the group about fairy tales. We talked in the Friday conversation yesterday about grimdark. Considering how dark fairy tales are, or can be, especially older ones, are fairy tales grimdark?
Are fairy tales grimdark? what was your working definition of grimdark to decide that?
Oh, don't do that. Oh,
Whatever it
don't
is for you, there's no definition. That's a whole. I don't know. You want to be another hour? We can talk about it, but yeah. So for your kind of your definition of grimdark, do fairy tales fit that definition?
I think some of them are grim and dark, but I don't know about grim actually. Dark, yes, like the one about the Little Mermaid. Maybe that one's grim dark because it's sort of like what the hell is the point? She turned into foam. So I guess some of them can be okay. So here's the definition I'm going to use for the purpose of this, like so you know where I'm coming from. Dark is just like bad things for whatever reason, and grim is sort of a purposelessness, I guess, some statement about the pointlessness of some things. So for that, I guess some fairy tales can be grim dark, like the Little Mermaid one comes to mind, but I'm sure there are others.
I can confirm there are definitely grim fairy tales.
Yes.
That joke must have been made last
Very
night.
nice.
Must have been.
Yeah. Do you think that, like the Little Mermaid one, do you think that those fairy tales that were, because those things were written, like what, Middle Ages or even maybe a little after that or something like that? Do you think that the purpose of them being that dark originally was to sort of tell people to stay in their place and be happy with their life where they're at and not strive for more, sort of like a control thing? Because I know like the nobles back then and the church back then didn't want people to have to get out of place to they weren't progressive at all, and I wonder if that was the purpose of those tales, like the Little Mermaid, stay in the water, what are you doing, and other tales like that, Hansel and Gretel, don't go to the witch's house, stay in your village, and I'm just wondering if that was the mindset behind, because it was a kind of nihilistic time almost, it was life wasn't easy, and going out of your lane could result in very bad things, and I'm just wondering when did we want that change to happy fairy tales?
Whenever ratings came along,
I haven't looked into the history
whenever
of
they
that.
needed a PG or U rating rather than a 15 to sell more movie tickets, possibly.
Yeah, well, I mean, Disney definitely did his work at giving us the happy ending as far as that goes. But I'm just wondering if there was a time before Disney that people wanted that happy ending. When did that come about? That people were craving something, wanted to change those original fairy tales to make them a little more palatable for the gentle audience,
It's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's like they were a form of control to kind of keep everyone in their lane. Like I always kind of saw them as like a cautionary tale for kids, like to, kind of a way to scare kids into doing the right things. But it could be, I mean, a form of control to not strive for more, to not take any chances, to not speak up against authority.
Yeah, but they didn't want kids leaving the farm, because then you wouldn't have somebody farming. So it goes along with that kind of mindset.
Huh. Never thought of it that way, but yeah, you could be onto something there.
I'll have to look further into that.
Do you think the
sometime.
nobility came up with that to keep the peasantry in their place, or the adults for the kids, or just people telling themselves that this is all we can do, so let's be happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the the Catholic Church plays a part in that. In European history, I know that for a fact. I couldn't say more. I mean, that's where those grim fairy tales mostly originated, was in that area of the world. The So that they play a part in that, because they didn't want people thinking outside the box generally, and so that's definitely a part of it. And the nobility would play into that, that mindset, even if they weren't always on board with, there was always a struggle between aristocracy and theocracy, but but when it came to the peasants, the regular people, they were on the same page, So it was always that need for control by the people who were already in power. And I wonder if fairy tales help with that, because I don't know. Nobody knows the actual origin of the fairy, like who wrote them. They were oral for a long time, so nobody actually knows the origins of that and who was in control of oral stories, other than the church was in control of a lot of that. But they, how those stories spread from region to region, you don't know, but people spreading them wouldn't necessarily be thinking, I'm doing this to control the next population in the town over. They're just spreading tales. So how does that all tie together? It'd be an interesting project to look stuff like that up. So if you want to challenge, Steve, there you go.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. That's a great subtopic. Yeah, I love that. Let me write that down in my little handy dandy journal thingy that I'm trying to do more of now.
Journal thinking. Oh wow.
Journal thingy.
No, that's out of the box. You can't do that.
Yeah. What's funny is that I've been trying to do more journaling and kind of like writing notes down and stuff, and I always find myself, where's Control F? What can it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's my problem with notebooks. I can't search for things, so it's mostly I think they help me remember more than anything else, because writing down helps, but I almost never go back and look at what I've written. It's just that I'm more focused when I write it down.
So before we wrap up, speaking of journaling, kind of like being more mindful of writing things down for me was something that I've been trying to do, and it's working so. But also not to buy any number ones, no number one book in a series is my resolution. But how's everyone doing on their resolutions so far, if you have any?
I didn't make new resolutions, but I started new hobbies towards the end of last year, not this year. So I've been keeping up with them more or less. So I've been learning to play Western style violin for a while. I'm learning some Indian style Carnatic music style violin. It's pretty different. Even the position where you hold the violin is different, and the music theory is different. So I'm starting to learn that, and some dance, which I don't know how long I'll keep that up, but I'm trying.
Doesn't a lot of the Indian music theory have a bigger scale of notes or something like that? Or
So it has.
I know this.
It has a 7-note scale, which is the same, but I think it has more variations. You know how the minor scale has the exact differences, and then there's 3 kinds of minor scales, and the gaps are defined. Indian music, I'm still very new to all of it, but I think there are ragas which are kind of like, they have a feeling. And so it's not that there's a scale and then there are 3 other variations of it which make up the minor scale. This is the rag which has these notes, and then also the feeling of the rag is defined by some additional ornamentation that you add on top of it, like with vibrato and like some glissando and things like that. Like, I mean, there are voice equivalents, and apparently it's the same for pretty much all instruments. So it is different, but I don't know if it's because there are more notes or it's just there's more ornamentation added to each scale than yeah.
Okay.
What about you, Chris? Are you muted?
Yep, you're muted.
No, I had plans to lose weight, but I'm doing it just by virtue of being sick. I've been sick for about a month and a half, and I'm losing weight just fine by doing that without being able to do anything else. So, so that one's going all right, I suppose, in that regard. I don't know. I just wanted to get back into a better reading groove, so I suppose I'm sort of doing that, and that's about it, really. I haven't, yeah. No other big plans. Too old to be making plans, big changes. I don't know. I'll win the lottery. There's a plan I'll make.
Good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's airproof. Yeah. What about you, Jarrod?
Well, one of my resolutions was to go to IFCA this year. And so I am going. It's all set. I got the plane tickets, got the reservations and stuff, and so I'll be heading down to Florida in March to attend that. So that'll be something to cross off my bucket list, I guess. And yeah, I thought I was going to try to lose weight too, but that hasn't worked out yet.
Get sick.
We'll see. We'll keep working on that. Yeah, I want to try to avoid
it's
that.
It's working for me, like I'm telling you.
But
filet mignon will not help. I'm
we'll
just going to put pro tips out here. Filet mignon on a regular basis apparently probably will not lead to.
That's not what I have in my mind here. So I don't know.
I like your plan better than mine.
So
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, and getting more involved with some read-alongs and stuff was part of the plan as well. And I think you guys can attest to that.
Definitely.
I'm doing okay there.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, this time always flies, but before we go, where can everybody find everyone? Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel or find me on the Patreon forums.
Jarrod.
You can find me in my YouTube channel, The Fantasy Thinker, and you can read my blog on Creative Crossroads on pagechewing.com, and find me on the forums there as well.
And Varsha the Disruptor.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain. There are links on the About page to the podcast, and the Speculative Speculations podcast is coming out soon. Look out for that. And of course, I haunt the Patreon forum with everyone else here.
Nice. Thanks, everyone. Chibipoe had to skip out early because he had dinner waiting, but I want to thank him for hanging out. He can be found on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days at Chibipoe1, I think, but I'll add it to the links down below. So awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see everyone soon, I'm sure. Very soon. Thanks everybody.